So welcome back, everyone. So guess who we're going to meet this afternoon?
Come on then, tell me.
Okay, so it's an exciting afternoon for us. So we're going to be joined by Ollie Jackson, who is a double British touring car championship winner, but he's also a chief engineer within an automotive company.
Gosh, gifted man.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but that's enough from me about him. So let's let Ollie introduce himself. So tell us a bit about yourself, Ollie.
Hi, my name's Ollie Jackson. I'm a racer in the British Touring Car Championship. I race one of the now MB Motorsport Ford Focuses, and I'm also chief engineer for control braking technology at Alcon Components, who are a specialist brakes manufacturing business.
Well, that sounds really interesting, Ollie. So, just on the driving touring cars, how did you get into that?
So with touring cars, I actually started out. A lot of guys who race at national level and world level, they start out karting very young. I actually started out a bit later. I raced a kit car called a Caterham. I raced that for a few years, did quite well. Went up through the ranks of national racing, and it was always my dream to be a touring car driver. And amazingly, eventually ended up behind the wheel of a touring car, initially with AMD, and yeah, that's the way it's been for the last 8 years. I think it has been now.
Great stuff. So can you tell us a little bit more about what's involved in competing in touring cars in the BTCC?
So with BTCC, I don't know if any of the audience will be fans or will be watching it, but it's a bit different to Formula One. The cars are based on road cars, like your parents might have. They're hatchbacks. The racing's very close. The races are quite short. It's very hard and fast. Everyone runs very close together. It's a pretty intense form of motorsport, but also it's a really accessible way of going racing. You know, it's an open series, although unfortunately with COVID at the moment we haven't been allowing crowds in. But if you go, you can get quite up close with the drivers. You know, we like to keep it a fairly open series, and it's great. It's a good fun championship. The standard's really high at the moment as well. It's a hard championship with a lot of good drivers in it. And it's brilliant.
That's great, thanks. And of course, not everybody gets to sit behind the driver's wheel like you do, Ollie. But I guess there's lots and lots of people involved with many different skills in creating a successful team. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So there's a huge number of people that are involved in the teams. I mean, with a touring car, the teams generally have to fabricate and design the cars themselves. And so even before the car has got to the track, there's a number of engineers, designers. There's a lot of guys that are working on the aerodynamics, on the structure of the cars. The stiffness of the car is quite important. There's a lot of components that are shared between the different cars on the touring car grids to keep the cost down, but and also to keep the racing very close. But there's still a lot of design work and effort that goes into each individual car, and to get that small competitive advantage. Because ultimately, although the cars are relatively similar in terms of suspension, all it means is that the racing becomes a lot closer. And rather than the fastest car being 3 or 4 seconds a lap faster than a Formula, the slowest car like in Formula One, the difference between the best and the worst cars in touring cars might only be half a second. So it's very much about getting those tiny little bits of advantage. But also when you get to the track, there's a huge amount of effort that gets into extracting the most amount of performance that you can out of your car. And data engineers who look at the telemetry, the race engineers who look to set the car up. I work very closely with my race engineer so that we can get the most out of the car. Obviously the setup has to change depending on the conditions, not just wet and dry, whether it's cold, whether it's hot. the tarmac conditions of the track itself. There's a lot of work that goes into just squeaking out that last bit of performance out of the cars. And then when you get to the final level, the car obviously has to be prepped and has to be reliable, and it has to have that setup as it's intended on the car. So there's a good, strong team of mechanics that we have that put a lot of work into prepping the cars, to setting them up. Every time the car goes out and comes back in, it gets put on the flat patch. All the geometry settings are checked. A lot of work goes in between the races for preparing the cars, making sure everything's absolutely as well prepared as it can be. The team will literally, even with races that are only a week apart, they'll have the engine out of the cars, they'll strip them back to the chassis, check everything, make sure everything's absolutely as fresh as it can be. Pieces get replaced on an hourly basis, not just when they fail as well, to make sure that there's nothing that's going to fail unexpectedly during the races. And it's a massive team, and that's before we've even got into the management of the team, the guys that look after the catering, stuff like this. A huge number of people are involved in the touring car team.
Wow, as you say, lots and lots of people involved, Ollie, and obviously lots of technology and lots of support. But from your perspective, then, as a driver, what sort of personal skills and characteristics do you think have helped you become a successful driver? What personal traits do you think are important?
I think me personally, I might be a little bit different to some of the other drivers in that actually my racing has gone hand in hand with my engineering career. Previously to Alcon, I worked at Lotus Engineering, the maker of sports cars up in Norfolk, and actually I've got a pretty good engineering understanding of how the suspension works on the car, how you set the car up, and I think that's helped me progress as a driver. But I think also, as a driver, you need to be able to communicate with your engineer. You need to have a certain level of understanding, even if not everyone's an engineer like me, if you see what I mean. You have to understand what you need from the car. You also have to work well with your team. I get on really well with my team of guys. We're all friendly. You have to create a good atmosphere in the team to get the most out of everybody as well. And there's a lot of threads to it other than just driving as well. There's the commercial aspect, bringing in the funding. And touring cars, most of the drivers have to source their own funds of sponsorship, bring everything together in terms of actually being able to fund the drive. And that's a massively important job of part of any touring car driver's job, is to be able to actually get the sponsors, get the funding in, and to be able to justify your existence, unfortunately. But the actual teamwork aspect of getting everyone pointing in the right direction and getting the most out of the car and most out of the team. There's definitely a leadership aspect to that every driver has to be able to demonstrate.
And I guess you've got to be a good driver as well.
Yeah, it helps. I think that I mean, there's a lot of good drivers in touring cars. I think there's a lot of talented people in UK motorsport in general, but I think that in terms of touring cars in particular, the package. There's some guys that are obviously massively talented and use that to escalate themselves up through the ranks of motorsport. I think in my case, I think it's probably more of a package of different traits, if you see what I mean. I make up for the fact that I'm not in a car every day, that I have a day job, that I started a bit late by being able to contribute other things to the team, like the setup, like being a good teammate for the other drivers as well. It's another important part of being a racing driver, and that's how I present myself as an offering, if you see what I mean.
So you mentioned there you've got another day job as well. So can you tell us what that is and what it involves?
So yeah, I mean, the company I work for is called Alcon Specialist Brakes and Clutches, and we're a manufacturer of high performance brakes, not just for motorsport, but for lots of different types of vehicle, armored and military. So armored Land Cruisers, armored personnel carriers, that kind of stuff. Also for some road cars, we do the brakes for some of the high performance Peugeots, for example. We have done some brakes for Bentleys in the past, Jaguars as well. So we're not a massive business, but we target particular niches that require a particular specialist application of braking technology. But we do a lot of high profile motorsport. We do the brakes on, for example, the latest generation of Aston Martin, McLaren, and a couple of other GT3 cars and GT4 cars. We do a lot of brakes in NASCAR in the US at the moment, and a lot of high-end motorsport, a lot of World Rally. In fact, Alcon was founded on the back of the first Audi World Rally cars, where we created the brakes for the Group B Quattro, which I'm sure most of the audience are too young to understand or appreciate. But it was quite a legendary and iconic rally car, and so we're all about specialist applications and high performance brakes. But what my job is in particular is I don't particularly look after the conventional friction brakes, which are the calipers, the discs, the master cylinders. What I'm actually heading at the moment is the next generation of braking technology at Alcon. So I look after brake-by-wire technology. And what that means is that on modern cars, electric cars, that some of the braking is done by the electric drivetrain. So the electric car will harvest back some of the energy that's deployed when it's accelerating, and it will use that energy to it will recover that energy again when the car is slowing back down, and to use it to recharge the battery back up again. And because the battery in an electric car, or whatever the electric drivetrain is, can't always take that energy, there's a varying amount of requirement for the friction brakes to actually work. So in the case of a Formula E car, for example, which is what we did our first brake-by-wire product on, we actually were on one of the current generation of Formula E cars, and on a Formula E car, they will go from using the friction brakes. So they only have the electric drivetrain on the back end of the car, but they'll go from needing the brakes to do all of the braking capability at the start of a race when the battery is fully charged, when the brakes are cold, to towards the middle and the end of the race, where the battery can do all of the job. When the tires are hot and worn out, the battery can take all of the energy of the back wheels, and the brakes don't have to do anything. And what the brake-by-wire system does is it enables the teams to actually make that balance themselves. So instead of the driver pushing the pedal and it actuating the brake circuit, actually the driver pushes the pedal. The car actually records the pressure that the driver's creating through the pedal, and then the car will then know how much regenerative braking it can do, and it will then initiate the regenerative braking on the electric motor, and then the bit of braking effort that's required that the regenerative system can't cover, then it will send a pressure signal to the brake-by-wire, and the brake-by-wire will produce that pressure, and it can change rapidly. It can go from 0 to full pressure in 50 milliseconds, so half of a tenth of a second. So it's quite an interesting piece of technology. It's electrohydraulic, so it's a high performance pump and accumulator setup with a servo valve in technical terms. But what it basically means is that there's an element of electronic control systems, there's an element of high performance hydraulics, and there's also the material science in it of making it as light and as efficient as possible.
Wow, sounds very complicated, but very impressive. So how do you balance your time between those two roles, Ollie? Obviously there's two amazing jobs you're doing there. How do you manage your life to balance your time between those two?
Well, the answer is with difficulty sometimes. Obviously, the racing can be reasonably predictable in terms of your demands, but actually it takes a lot out of you mentally, and it's a very focused weekend, particularly in touring cars, where it's it's 3 races in a weekend. It's 3 sessions on a Saturday as well. There's a lot of other, you spend the entire day working with the team, and you can get up on a Monday morning and actually it's a struggle, but I have a good team of guys around me to help me at Alcon. We've been working hard in making sure that they can make up for the times where I'm not as available as I might be needed to be. And it's and also it's a developing part of the business at the moment, so it's sometimes the requirements can be quite intense with the day job. We're at a point where we're still learning. We still encounter new challenges with the development, and sometimes it can go from a time where actually we're working along a nice set plan to everything that's going on, and I can structure it all around the racing to make sure that we're not going to be caught out. And other times something might turn up where we have a sudden problem where we need to throw the kitchen sink at it, and it's those times that can be challenging. And particularly a couple of years ago with the Formula E campaign, where I was having to fly out abroad at very short notice on occasions, and all at the same time as my racing, and it is quite hard, but I just about managed to fluke my way through it usually.
Fantastic. So did you always want to do this then? Tell us a little about your journey as to how you got to where you are. Is this something you wanted to do from an early age, or is it something you just fell into?
Well, I had a bit of a convoluted route to engineering, actually, in that I always wanted to be a car designer, but to be honest, I can't really draw very well, so that was never really going to be an option for me. So I had my eyes set on being involved in the automotive industry because I'm a petrol head. I love my cars. I always have done, even as a tiny kid. And not just the racing, but just the road cars and technology. I've always been interested. And initially, I actually was pushed towards IT at school. And to be fair, I've always been pretty good at IT with computing technology. But I did my first. I went to university. I did my bachelor's degree at Bath in computer science, and enjoyed it. But started to work in the industry and decided it really it didn't interest me as much as cars did. And actually, I wanted to find a route where I could employ both the what I was good at in terms of IT and also to work in the industry that I loved. And so I went and did a master's degree in automotive product engineering at a small university, a specialist engineering university called Cranfield, which is quite well respected in the automotive sphere. And then from there, that's where I did that master's degree, and I went into engineering at Lotus initially doing powertrain simulation work, and then across to some of the vehicle dynamics work, and it's given me a bit of a broader view. It's how I've ended up working on control braking technology because of my IT background, and I love the technology as well. So it's an ideal situation for me, really. I get to play with all this cool new technology, and still be involved in automotive, so that I'm interested in what it's actually being applied to, rather than it just being an abstract thing. And I think that's the great thing is to actually with engineering, it's so interesting, but it definitely helps to be interested in the product that you're working on as well, rather than just the core of the engineering principles.
Great stuff. So, and what advice would you give to anybody else out there now today who's listening to you, Ollie, about and thinking about this as a career route? What would you say to them?
I'd say engineering's a great industry to be in. It's really interesting. I think it's unique in that you get to solve problems, to come up with new technology, and to do it, especially these days where the industry in automotive in particular is changing rapidly. The ability to innovate and make your ideas become real is a really special and unique opportunity in terms of career choices. And I think in terms of how you go about it, design and technology, look to mechanical engineering as a degree. If maybe like me, it's not some of the aspects of technology, there's some certain things that you're better at. Don't rule out going and doing something that's related to for instance, IT in my case, but there might be some other aspect that some other, whether it's chemistry or something like that as well, where you might choose to focus on that first and then convert to engineering afterwards. But it's just about making the best use of what you're good at, and just trying to guide yourself down the path of where you want to be as a career choice at the end of the day.
Great advice. Thanks, Ollie. So just a couple of final questions. So obviously it's a fast-paced changing industry, as you've indicated. So what can we look forward to in motorsports in the future? How do you think it's going to change?
I think motorsport's changing rapidly at the moment, and in some respects, it's difficult to see where it's going. There's going to be a big change of moving across towards electric cars in terms of road car technology, and it's difficult to see a world where that's not going to be reflected in motorsport as well. So I think there's going to be an increasing amount of electrification in motorsport over the next 5 to 10 years as manufacturers' products with some of the legislation changes that are happening. Road cars will have to be electric, or at least have to be hybrid within the next 10 years, and within the next 15 fossil fuels will be eliminated entirely. I'll be honest, I'm a petrol head. I like noisy engines and stuff like that. Although I work in the electric vehicle technology market, I would be very upset if there was no scope for internal combustion engines going forwards, and maybe it might end up being a bit of a niche, or it may be that it becomes a particular area of motorsport. I think there are certain challenges in motorsport that mean that, for example, endurance racing, where electric racing is not really suited at the moment, and it's going to be interesting to see, because I think some of the challenges for that, whether it's fuel cell technology, whether it's synthetic fuels, it will be interesting to see how motorsport solves those problems, because I think it will be reflected in the road car market as well. So it's interesting. It's a lot of two-way communication between motorsport and the road car market, and I think but short term, I think particularly touring car racing, I'd be amazed if that didn't go electric in the next 10 years, and I think you'll be seeing more and more electric vehicle technology, both on the road and on the racetrack, in the next 5 years.
Great, Ollie. So thanks for that fascinating insight. So just one final question. If you had one final message for our viewers, our young audience watching today, what about their futures, what would it be?
I'd say be excited about the future, be excited about engineering, and whatever part of the team that you end up in, it's a great place to be, and it's an enjoyable working environment. So whether it's you're working as an engineer, as a technician, as a fabricator, working CNC machines, there's so many interesting jobs in engineering, and it really is a great place to be.
Well, thanks for that, Ollie. That was absolutely fascinating. I was particularly interested, John, about how the journey of motor racing is going to go from, as he said, from the petrol head era into the electric vehicles. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens there, isn't it? But as far as Ollie's own personal journey, that how he went from originally thinking he was going to be in IT to ending up in motor racing. Who knew that was going to happen for him? So really, really interesting interview. So thanks for that.
Yeah, thanks ever so much, Ollie. So yeah, absolutely. Just shows you how your career path can change phenomenally, and
really.
opportunities that can come up, doesn't it?
Yeah,
so,
he was great. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah. So that's the end of our live sessions for today, Alex. So I think you're back with us on Thursday. So
I am, if you'll have me.
Of course we will, no problem at all. Yeah, so we'll look forward to seeing you on Thursday. But before then, we've got another sort of action-packed day tomorrow. We're focusing tomorrow on energy, sustainable, renewable energy, a huge topic and very important to all of us and our futures. And we're going to find out what businesses are doing around that agenda. So please, if you can, join us again from 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. But until then, go and enjoy and explore the site, and we'll see you soon.
Sheffield is home to an advanced manufacturing park, and the area as a whole has a key role to play, I think, in our aim of making the UK the best place in the world to do science.
The North Star, the St Paul's Way Summer Science School and the Well North Enterprises Partnership encourages innovation and opportunity to inspire your generation. Our vision is for the UK to become the best place in the world to practice science, technology, engineering, arts and maths.
Landing checks. Undercarriage. Down 3 green. Plates. 4,200 green. Fuel. It's good. We've got 13,500 pounds. Landing lamps. Can go up, I suppose. Flashing arrival. Can't be panels. Yeah, no.
Gaining qualifications is a key stepping stone to future employment.
It's important because you never really get these opportunities in life, and it really helps with your future more than you think it will. On your CV, your confidence will improve a lot. From these 4 days, you can see a difference between everyone you've met.
But qualifications alone do not guarantee success in finding, keeping and progressing in employment.
I think it really helps young adults to develop their skills and become more employable to help their future careers.
Our Summer Academy gives young people the opportunity to gain key skills and attributes that employers are looking for.
Personally, I think I've gained a lot of confidence, self-esteem, and that will definitely help me out in the future. Plus I've also learned how to write CVs, which I didn't know before.
Our week-long, fun and interactive programme is designed for students aged 14 to 18 who are keen to get a head start.
I have more knowledge about jobs and how things work, especially engineering.
Join us this summer and discover the world of work.